partnership tax returns. Okay, so it is a tremendous audit risk these days to set yourself up as a sole proprietor and not do anything else, just start doing business. You have a very high likelihood of being audited, and it's as much as 10 times more than someone who is properly structured as an LLC taxed under the partnership-style taxation. So keep that in mind. That's one massive tax issue. The second thing, like we said, that one of the tax traps all the time is just this overpaying of taxes and paying the self-employment tax out the nose and not being able to control that. That is a huge tax trap. I think those are really two of the primary tax traps. I mean, and I would say the other one is that most small business owners who are sole proprietors, they really don't have a lot of advice and assistance on finding a good CPA. They may not know what questions to ask, and so they may do the tax return themselves. A good CPA will find you deductions, but you need to be able to find one. We have a whole section on finding the right CPA for your business, and we detail some of the common deductions, how you go about selecting a CPA, questions to ask them, and things of that nature. So when you get your business entity structured, every year when you pay your taxes, you can find a CPA that can not only save you taxes from the standpoint of the self-employment taxes that we talked about, but can find other deductions and tax savings that really were not present when you were operating as a sole proprietor and not sure about what some of these different tax deductions are. And let me say this, and I think that a lot of us have had experience with this. When you go see an attorney or you go see an accountant and you don't have a really firm background, or even if you have a pretty reasonable background, and you try to get some information out of them, a lot of times everything they say sounds really good, or you don't have any way of evaluating how much they really know. You know, the attorney starts spouting off some cases and some legal jargon, or the accountant starts mouthing off IRS codes, and it sounds like they really know what they're talking about. And so you say, yeah, sure, that sounds good, let's do it. Once you have materials like this, you will have more information out there, in my opinion, than most attorneys that work in this area. And I'm not trying to say that you don't need an attorney and you never will, but I'm going to tell you that you will have a very high level of specialized knowledge to the point that when someone tries to tell you what makes sense or what doesn't, you will have a very good idea of whether they're telling you the truth and whether they are up to date on the rules and the laws, and the same will be true with your accountant. So the horror stories are out there of people getting horrible accountants and other things. Make sure you know what you need to ask. Make sure you understand the background. The sad reality is this, and I discovered this many years ago, and I think all y'all can reiterate, nobody will care as much about your business as you do. Doesn't matter how much you pay your lawyer or your accountant. It doesn't matter if you think you can trust them necessarily or that they know everything. You need to make some decisions on your own, and the first of those is if you're going to get help from an accountant, you need to be able to evaluate them, and you need to be able to keep up with state requirements and reports and forms. Remember I told you about the accountant that did not inform their client regarding the state franchise taxes due. So no one will care as much about your business as you do. So get educated, make sure you understand everything, and then you can make the right choices when the choices come up.
Well, and this all is something very similar to me. That's why I was basically interviewing CPAs again, is because I'm on my fourth CPA, because believe me, everybody sounds like exactly they know what they are doing, and they have no question that they're doing it right. But I'll tell you what, they don't have to be there when you're being audited, and that's what happened to me twice. I was audited twice, and what I was told was incorrect. Once I got there, it was a whole different story when you're talking to a tax auditor, and he's saying, no, I'm telling you, you need these, and you're thinking to yourself, well, wait, the CPA said this. So it's definitely incredibly important to know. I mean, I learned firsthand that you have to have some information on this stuff and some sort of knowledge in it even before you can interview somebody correctly.
Right. Well, it's kind of like the person that goes to the mechanic shop to get their car fixed, and the guy says, "Well, it's the Decon X5, defibrillator valve," and you're like, "Oh, okay, yeah. How much is that? Oh, that's $2,000. Oh, okay, yeah." I mean, there's no way if you don't know even just a little bit about cars. I mean, there's no way that you can really reasonably interpret whether or not that person is being truthful or not, or whether they really understand what's going on. And I'm not trying to say that anyone's going to try to sell professional services that you don't need. But in this case, it really is a question of how up-to-date is this person on the code? What are they telling me? Does this make the most sense? And then you can have a meaningful discussion. And a lot of times when you're not sure about what someone's talking about, it just goes in one ear and right out the other. The other thing I want to say is this. And I remember that we had talked, and it sounded like you had some situations where the attorney was telling you one thing that made sense kind of actually the accountant was telling you one thing that seemed wrong. Probably was wrong, but he was telling you one thing, or she was telling you one thing that was relating to a tax choice. But interestingly, and I think we got into this in the emails, the accountant was telling you something that had to do with a tax choice. But even though the funny thing was the accountant was wrong. So let me start. It's really confusing. The accountant was telling you something regarding a tax choice, but what the attorney was telling you actually, what the accountant was, okay, God, this is bad. Let me take a break. What I'm trying to point out here is that the accountant was telling you you needed a single member LLC to use subchapter S, or was that the attorney?
Yeah, the CPA guy said that I can just do a single-member LLC so that I could get this sub-S Corp thing that you said.
Yeah.
And then the attorney said he was just really blasé about it. He was like, yeah, you could do it that way, or you could keep both members.
Right.
But really that's just the wrong way to tell me, I think.
Well, here's the point I was going to make. The accountant was telling you something that may have made sense from a tax perspective, although it sounds like the information they were giving you was erroneous. From a tax perspective, they were looking out for you. But the accountant was giving you information that from a legal perspective was going to reduce your protection. And that's because the accountant was telling you you should set up a single-member LLC. Now, the attorney, if he would have, had the heart to tell you, should have said, well, that may or may not be a good idea from a tax standpoint, but from a legal standpoint, the single-member LLC does not offer full protection in certain situations, one of which is if there's a bankruptcy, a personal bankruptcy, they can go right through the single-member LLC. But if you have two members, they generally cannot do that. And that's the state of the law right now, and it's probably not going to change. So you can see that there is some legal advice that makes sense, and there's accounting advice that makes sense. But usually, when you try to get your information from two different experts, usually they'll tell you one thing because they only see it from the legal side, or they only see it from the tax side. I'm not a CPA. I have to be clear on that. But I have dealt with this stuff in my own business so many times. And being an attorney, I filter everything through my legal mind, and I can tell you that a lot of the things that the accountant may tell you to do from a legal perspective may not be the best thing for your business. So having materials that take you through both ends of the spectrum will let you make the right decision in that area as well.
I was going to follow up.